I'd like to call to order the Public Services meeting to order. If we can rise, and I'll put the little flag here on the screen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So, always handy to have an American flag around. Okay, we're on item number 3, Commissioners, adoption of the agenda. I'll take a motion to approve the agenda. We need a motion.
So moved.
Romano approves the agenda.
Okay, so it's moved by Romano, supported, I believe, by Commissioner Ha. Please vote on adopting the agenda. Okay, thank you, Commissioners. Item number 4 is public participation. So this is for anyone calling in or who is on Zoom on the computer. You can talk about any item on the agenda only under this public participation. We do have public participation item number 8, which is at the end of this agenda, in which you can talk about any item that you wish. But this public participation only pertains to those items on the agenda. So I will open up public comment, and you have to press *6 to unmute yourself so we can hear you. So is there anyone there from the public? This is your chance. Anyone from the public? Do we have anybody from the public, Mike?
We don't have anyone requesting to speak in the chat, Commissioner Magic.
Okay, so we'll close that portion. Once again, if there is anyone there from the public, you have a chance to talk about any issue. Item number 8, or excuse me, item number 9 at the end of the agenda is another public participation. Okay, so Commissioners, we're going to go on to item 5, which is department recommendations. It looks like we have items A through E, which pertain to the road department, and I'll accept a motion.
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Drolet. I move items A through E.
Okay, moved by Drolet. Do we have support?
Support by Ha.
Support by Commissioner Ha. Okay. Is there any questions of commissioners pertaining to any of these items? Or Brian, you're welcome to comment as well if you wish. So I don't see any speakers right now, so I'm just going to call it out. Are there any commissioners who wish to speak on these items A through E? Okay, so I don't see any speakers there, so let's vote on that. We do have a motion and we have support. Please vote on items A through E. And I believe it passes, correct, Mike? Okay, the item passes. We're now going on to second half here, items F through J. This pertains to a number of issues here. It looks like they're all COVID proposals, budget amendments, and contractual services. I first want to recognize we have a couple people online with us. We have Kelly Lovedy from the Macomb Chamber of Commerce. We have Stacy Jarko from the Sterling Heights Chamber of Commerce. And I'm not sure if we have anyone else from Vicki Rad. You're here too, right? Vicki's here. She's head of our planning department in Macomb County. Do we have Tom Kelly here from Automation Alley? Okay, I do not believe I see his name there. So I guess we can maybe take this.
Mr. Chair?
Good to see you. Yes.
I make the motion for E through J. No, I'm sorry, F through J. Commissioner Lucido?
Who is that? Who said that?
Support Romano.
So that's moved by Lucido, support.
Mr. Chair,
Okay. Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Kraft.
I'd actually like to keep F separate and then maybe lump G and H together and then I and J together, if I could.
Okay, is there any, anybody who opposes that? Commissioner Kraft just wants to take, let's take item F and then we'll go on to the next items after that and lump them together. If there's no objection, is that okay?
That's good for me.
Okay, so what I'll do right now, I'll ask Lucido and Romano if they could just make the motion for item number F only. Can we get a motion and support for that?
Yes,
Yes.
I'll make the motion.
So Lucido and supported by Romano. Very good. Okay, so item F, folks, department recommendation here. I'm just going to read this out here. To approve the proposal with Automation Alley for Manufacturing Resilience Program in the amount of $1.7 million for Planning and Economic Development Department. Funding is available through the CARES Act. So what I want to first do is we have Vicki Rad here, Director of Planning. I'd like to have her speak upon this, and then I'll open it up for questions. Welcome, Vicki. You have the floor.
Great, thank you, everyone. As you can imagine, we're really busy in planning and economic development. When we look at the full allocation of monies that came to Macomb County, about $70 million is really truly allocated to help our businesses and our economy recover from this pandemic. This proposal is probably one of many that you see coming through. When we look at the $70 million, we did parse it down into 3 phases. Phase is the grants that you're seeing that are out there. Those are the $5,000 and $10,000 grants that we are issuing to small businesses. The phase 2 of this is looking at some special programming, really looking at how do we strategically help these businesses get beyond just what they're experiencing in the short term, but how do we set them up for long-term safety. Automation Alley came to us. We set up a task force. They came to us with this proposal where it is a not to exceed. It's $1.7 million. Ultimately, we are looking to allocate programming and mentorship through Automation Alley and their expertise with Industry 4.0, up to 50 businesses in Macomb County, not to exceed the 1.7. Ultimately, what businesses would do, especially if they have diversified or realize that there's a market to manufacture or produce products for PPE, a different industry that they haven't touched in the past, they will be provided that guidance to continue to grow in that market. For example, we saw with the ventilators, the face shields, the masks, there's an opportunity for our businesses to definitely tap into that market. But then also looking at some digital environments, especially with us having to go to contactless or remote type environments. These businesses can utilize these funds. They do have to apply. They get vetted through Automation Alley, and then they receive those services to truly bid on this work. They can become viable vendors in this industry.
Okay, very good. I'm having problems with my camera, so I turned the camera off. Apologize. So I have on the speaker list Commissioner Drolet. You there, Leon?
Yes, can you hear me now? Mr. Chair, can you hear me?
Okay, if Leon. Yes, go ahead, Leon.
Thank you. You're cutting in and out a little bit. I apologize if it's not clear. Vicki, thank you very much for the explanation. That helps with much of the explanation with regard to the PPEs. But can you please explain a little bit more about the other part of the program that deals with communication improvements? I'm not sure I understood that.
In regards to the specific to Automation Alley's proposal, or just part of our bigger scope?
The specific to what we're approving today, the $1.7 million for the Automation Alley.
Correct. So, ultimately, there's reporting that the Automation Alley will come back with us, letting us know like their scan of what the PPE market, what that environment looks like. And then there is a component where it's specifically drilling down to the specific needs of the businesses. Automation Alley would act as what's considered an honest broker, trying to connect our manufacturers with opportunities for them to be bidding as a manufacturer for PPE. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think it does. I thought it was something different than that. So the entire proposal has to do with helping them switch to manufacturing of PPEs, and then this other component helps them bid on projects involving creation of PPEs. Is that correct?
That is correct. The scope is pretty broad. I'm going to maybe throw some examples where I can see our businesses pivoting because of COVID-19. For example, you may have been to the and seen those robots that have the Lysol cans that are spraying and sanitizing areas. That's something that Macomb County businesses can manufacture. That's not a market they're currently involved in. And so by having this relationship with Automation Alley and bringing in all their expertise and connections to those that are involved with automation, robotics, Industry 4.0, any type of digitalization. So it could be manufacturing physical products, or it could be actually being very intuitive and inventive around what we're dealing with.
Okay, thank you. That helps me quite a bit. Just real quick, it's a little off topic. When does the next phase finish for the $10,000 grants related to the other elements of what we're doing? I know it's off this particular topic, but just want to get in real quick.
No problem. The grant closes out for the 50-plus employee headcount on the 22nd of July. So that when we're still open, it's still open. I'll give you guys a heads up. We've had a pretty low response rate on this one, so we really have to encourage businesses to apply. We have $5 million that we allocated, and we've got money to go around. So we've got to get that messaging out there that this money is for these businesses. They can receive up to a $10,000 grant with this round.
Okay, thank you so very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Leon. On the list, I have Commissioner Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Vicki. I read through all the paperwork, and I was originally concerned that we were dumping $1.7 million in and not getting $1.7 million back, basically, into Macomb. But it sounds like we are, from what I read. So I'm excited about that. My question is, I know Automation Alley is kind of a regional entity. Are other counties doing the same thing with COVID dollars that we are?
Yes, great question. Actually, the program that is outlined in front of you is actually being implemented currently right now in Macomb County. Okay. They got a head start. I believe their Board of Commissioners meeting was like 2 weeks ago. So they got a head start. However, we have employers queued up that are interested in this program in Macomb County.
Awesome. Thank you, Vicki. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any other wish to speak? I don't see anyone else on the list. Okay, seeing none, please vote on item F only.
That motion passes 10-0.
Very good. Thanks, Mike. Okay, so we'll now go on to item number C. I'm sorry, not C, G.
Item
we
G
can take
and H.
G.
Look, go ahead, Chair.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Joe.
Well, I'd like to make a motion for G and H together. I'll make a motion to approve G and H together.
Very good. So motion made by Romano. Is there support for G and H?
Support Haw.
Support by Harold Haw. Vicki, the floor is yours again. And I know again we have Kelly Lavati from the Macomb. Please welcome.
Thank you. And thank you, Stacy and Kelly, for being here. They've been truly pillars to what we're doing here in economic development. You know, when we got the announcement that $70 million was coming to our department, and knowing the constraints we have with limited resources, a hiring freeze, and the work share program in place, we really needed to look at outsourcing and bringing in some talent to help us. To this day, you know, both Kelly and Stacy have been standing up and helping us do that. But, you know, at this point, we've decided that we should be paying them for their time and effort. So we put forth a proposal. Both are identical. We have stood up what's called our Economic Recovery Task Force. When we look at really being responsible around that 70 million, it's really important for us to understand what's happening to our industries. So part of that task force is we've got chairs that represent various industries that are very important to Macomb County. And within those task force, we have subcommittees. And they've come forth with proposals of areas of need based on their specific industry. And so we're vetting that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we're looking at allocating close to 35 million of the 70 for these special projects, which the one that we just went over with Automation Alley would fall under the bucket of manufacturers. But we need help with program administration. And so reached out to our two chambers to say, could you potentially help us be that voice to help us with the meetings, help us with organizing, making sure these projects actually get implemented, that milestones are being reached, that there's transparency in how the dollars are being spent, and then ultimately, what is the impact? So part of the contract is looking at standing up a dashboard, which we're currently underway. It looks really good as far as where did the grant dollars go and who was impacted by that. There's a survey, listening to our businesses, trying to get that response and feedback from our businesses. But then there's now, what do we do with the results of the survey? How do we actually implement and come up with some solutions to help those that are hardest hit? So part one of that contract is program and project administration. That really is looking at billable hours, saying to both Kelly and Stacy, thank you for everything you've done. But we've got to make sure that you also get, the piece of this where your time is being recognized. But part of that is also working with our Chamber Alliance. It's more than just the Macomb and Strong Heights chambers. We got some smaller chambers in Macomb County that we want to make sure they're included in this, and they want to help us. And so we've included them as part of the contract where they'll help us with outreach. And you brought up the grants, phase one of the grants, we received an overwhelming response. We received close to 3,900 applicants, which we're currently reviewing, but it's taking time. We have to review every single one of those applications, verify that they are an eligible business, verify that they in fact are truthful in their application. And so as we're doing that diligence and making sure those monies go appropriately to the right types of businesses, it just takes time. And so part two of the contract is paying the chambers up to $20 to be our review team to help get those dollars out to our businesses.
Very good, Vicki. I'd like to, before we have questions from commissioners, I want to give the opportunity for both Kelly, and I know Stacy's going to be speaking on item I and J. I'll let her speak as well. So Kelly, are you there? You could, if you have anything to add, we'd love to hear it. Okay, you there, Kelly? Okay, Kelly might be having some difficulties. I see she's online and she's green. Stacy Zarko, are you there? Do you have any comments you want to add on this?
You know what? We appreciate this opportunity. We've been working, Kelly and I, we share a lot of the same thoughts. So if you can't hear her, probably it'll come from one of us, but we've had a great time. We've learned so much about the industries and what the needs are in our communities. And I think that it's been, we've been privileged to learn a lot of this so that we can support our small businesses more. And, we thank Vicki and the Planning and Economic Development team for bringing us into the fold and for allowing us to be here for this. We know that this has been a crisis for so many of our small businesses. And while some of these grants, are just a tip of the iceberg for their losses over the last 4 and 5 months, we look forward to these projects of how they can really improve towards the future. And what would ever happen if we ended up in a situation like this again? We've been helping them move their business forward to continue to be successful.
Very good. Kelly, if you're there, feel free to speak in anytime. Let me ask you this, Vicki, just before I open it up for questions. So these dollars, what we're planning to do is distribute $70 million out of the 150. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And then how are the two chambers here, along with yourself, You said that you guys are going to distribute, you're going to be responsible for distributing 35 million out of the 70 million. Is that correct?
So phase one is grants, which is close to 25 million that will be strictly allocated for grants. Those are money that we give to businesses. They don't have to repay us back for that. Phase two is special programming. So the Automation Alley proposal falls under that. We're looking at some type of PPE reimbursement program for businesses that had to purchase PPE. Maybe they submit those receipts and receive a reimbursement for that. We're talking about standing up a marketing program. What we found is a lot of our small businesses, especially those that are so comfortable having storefronts that they could not operate in that fashion anymore. So there would be a voucher system where they would work with a marketing company to stand up a website so they have a strong online presence and can actually sell products or services online. The example I used there was I was trying to purchase Thai food one day and not find a menu for a local business in Macomb County. I'm like, we need to help these businesses get online. They have to have that online presence. So that would be one of the special projects that would fall under this. But we found some really cool things from our task force, hearing from our ag business, hearing from our restaurants. You know, we just got off a call, Stacy, Kelly, and I just a half hour ago with the Economic Recovery Task Force, where we heard from our restaurant industry, you know, the pains that our banquet halls are going through right now.
Right.
They have not been able to operate. You know, they're not seeing any revenue being generated. So we've got to do things differently depending on the industry, which requires a lot of hand-holding.
Very good. And then last but not least, these contract services. December 31st, is that correct, Vicki?
That is correct. You know, some of the conversations we've been having, you know, what does the deadline look like? We do know that December 31st deadline is a hard deadline, but maybe perhaps we could extend it into 2021 if the legislatures hear it out. But right now we are looking at everything coming to an end and completion on the 31st of December.
Very good, very good. Thank you. So with that, I'll open it up for questions. First on the list, I have Commissioner Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Kelly and Stacy and both of your chambers for all the hard work that you're doing. I have to come and advocate for one of the chambers that's not on the list, my little Anchor Bay chamber over here. And Vicki, I know you mentioned, you know, the teams outside of these two as being part of it. Can you kind of dig down a little bit deeper and explain it a little bit more for me as to, you know, how they're helping out and how they're being compensated, things like that?
Right. So we've got a meeting with the Chamber Alliance. We wanted to have this meeting first with the board, but ultimately they've been helping us out. You know, back in June, we hosted a special program called Macomb is Open, where we were able to give gift cards and $1,000 checks to businesses that were selected. That was the Chamber Alliance that pulled that together. For this next round of grants, we do need help with review. We've got a backlog. And, you know, ultimately we're trying to get as much of those checks out to our businesses as fast as possible. But, you know, quite frankly, we are finding some applications that, you know, it is fraudulent. And so we've got to make sure we do our diligence. And so having that check point, and it can't just all be our internal staff. You can't ask the busiest people to take on more work. So we are going to be relying on them. And then ultimately, they are our biggest ambassadors for our community. We know that their members are reaching out to them and specifically, you know, coming to them with complaints. They're coming to them with concerns. And so it's great to have boots on the ground and the eyes and ears from our chambers.
Thank you. Thank you, all three of you, for all that you're doing right now. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Phil. Next on the list, Commissioner Joe Romano.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you, Chair. I'm going to speak to the Sterling Heights Chamber. Ms. Zarko and myself had a lengthy conversation yesterday when I called her. She actually reached out to me and we talked at length about what does the chamber actually do. And just for the number of hours and the employee time and the details and the transparency, the sorting out the eligibility, verifying the eligibility, this all falls on the chamber when these businesses come to them. Just because a business applies doesn't necessarily mean they qualify. So they have to kind of dig around to make sure there's no hanky-panky going on. And the chamber does all that. They're getting their ambassadors, as she mentioned, to reach out to these businesses because, believe it or not, a lot of these businesses don't feel that they're eligible when in fact they are. And through the work of the ambassadors of the Sterling Chamber, and again, I'm only speaking on the Sterling Chamber, these businesses realize that, hey, there is something out there that we can do, and they're applying and getting the funds that they need. So I want to thank you, Ms. Zarkov, and I want to thank the Sterling Heights Chamber. I'm sure Kelly's doing just as good as a job. That's all I have, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks for those good comments, Joe. Next on the list, I have Commissioner Leon Drollet. You there, Leon?
Leon went home. Can you hear me now?
Leon went home?
No, I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Oh, we thought you were with the pig, Leon.
Well, he has to apply for an extra large mask grant, but we'll discuss that later. So the question I have, I'm getting a little bit of a cross signal on this. On one hand, we heard Vicki say a little earlier that this current round of grants, we have not really gotten the response that we may have expected. And yet we also hear that there's an overwhelming number of applications that need to be gone through. Is it the overwhelming number of applications that have come for the first round, and that the second round with the 50-plus employee businesses are not responding as prominently, or what is the situation with the number of applicants?
Yeah, and I can speak to that, Leon. When we look at the demographic of businesses in Macomb County, 95% of our small businesses qualified for that first round, that $5,000 grant, under 49 employees. The remaining portion of our businesses, that 5%, fall under that larger category. So, when you just look at sheer volume, we knew going into the larger, the 50 plus, that we wouldn't see the volume, but we know they're out there. And it could be that these businesses are just truly, truly busy. I had a conversation today with my team. We're going to start picking up the phone and calling some of our best businesses in Macomb County. You're eligible for this. There is some confusion because there's a lot of grants out there. And then they're also because they received the PPP or they received some other type of loan through the SBA, so they don't think they're eligible, but in fact, yes, they are. And so we clarified that. Sometimes we got to twist their arm a little bit, but we knew the volume was going to be less with the 50 plus, but we still have a week. And if everything goes well, like the last go around, we saw all those applications pour in at the final hours.
Okay. And a follow-up question is, do you think there's going to be an opportunity to reopen availability, if there's funds remaining, for smaller businesses that may have missed the first window for whatever reason? They didn't hear about it until it was too late, or something along those lines?
Yes, absolutely. And so I didn't mention phase three. Phase three for us is the last months of the year, October, November, December, and we're calling that our reevaluation phase. What we want to do is take a look at the environment. What does October look like? We are allocating aside $5 million for grants in October. Like, for example, I gave the example on the banquet halls or the gyms that have been closed this whole entire time. They're going to be hurting in October if they're not open by then. So we do have that opportunity, but I do want to make mention MEDC just rolled out a brand new grant program now, which opened up for 50 or less employees. Macomb County got $7.5 million, so that's actually happening right now, opened up today, closes out August 5th. And then we're also working with our CDBG and some of the other community CDBG programs, looking at some micro enterprise with that program opening up in September. And so there's absolutely an opportunity for businesses that missed that first go around to get in on some of these other opportunities. And then we're going to look at that October through December to reevaluate who didn't get any grants. Have they been hiding under rocks this whole time? The monies are out there, but we want to make sure that the 3 months are the catch-up time.
Okay, and so if a business contacts me and asks about these programs that they might only now be becoming aware of, that they may have qualified, earlier for a small grant program or something like that, who should they call? Should they call our Planning and Economic Development Department?
I would say they can call us, but where they're going to find the greatest amount of information in real time is on our website. So if they go to macombusiness.com, they can click the link for grants. They'll see one that says 50 plus, a grant that says, 0 to 49, and then they can apply directly through our website as well.
Okay, I appreciate the fact that they can call the chamber because I did direct one business and they just there's like you said earlier, there's a lot of discussion in the media about grants or opportunities for reimbursement. Some of them think it's only if they have to distribute PPEs and they don't think they qualify for that. And, it's not necessarily as explanatory as some of the questions they might have. They're really curious whether or not they should take the time to fill out these applications or if they just assume they don't qualify.
Right.
So, would calling the chamber also be an option, or would it be best, who would it be best to call the planning economic development? Who would be their first contact if they're not certain when they look at the website?
Right. So we do have our main line open. We have that monitored, so they can definitely call us. They can absolutely reach out to the chambers. I think ultimately what we're going to do is redirect them to the website because that's where they're going to want to get to that grant application process. But if they're looking for a live voice, you can send them to our department, and we can definitely do and help them out.
Okay. Thank you so very much. I appreciate it. And thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Brown, you are speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Vicki, following up on Leon's point about people reaching out to the department for help and assistance with the website, how backlogged are you? How are you keeping up? If they call the county office, they leave a message and someone will get back with them. Are we getting back to them in a timely fashion? What's the calls been running like?
Right, we absolutely are. We've got a way that we automated the system. So, if they come in through the front line, it gets automated and there's a call log. Our entire team is monitoring those call logs to make sure that those businesses get responses in a very quick time frame, especially as it relates to the grants, because we know that there's a deadline looming on those. But there is, I'll tell you, last year when we look at our numbers, we assisted 400 businesses in Macomb County, and we celebrated that. We've vetted over 4,000 calls in these last 3 months. So as you imagine, there definitely is an increase in volume. The types of businesses that we're working with are some of our non-traditionals, but we absolutely embrace it. They are going through a very tough time right now. There's a health crisis and there's an economic crisis. And so we really like to present ourselves as being that first line of help and support for these businesses.
Some of the businesses that I've talked to, and I've talked to many throughout this last several months, some have the perception that, well, they've received one, they're ineligible for anything else. So what's the point of looking? I don't think that's accurate, though, is it?
So there are some, that's the clarifying question. If they received, for example, the MEDC funds in the beginning, back in April, they are now actually eligible to respond to this next round of grants that came from MEDC. There was just some changes in the legislature that happened today for that. Originally, that was not allowed. So there's a lot of moving parts. But if they did receive CARES Act dollars from Macomb County, we want to make sure that they're not double dipping into other CARES Act, because if they were audited, that may raise a flag. However, if they receive the SBA PPP or there's another loan program, the Economic Recovery Loan Program, they still would be eligible for the grants.
Those are the reasons for the calls, right? Because the people are calling because they're not sure which program they received the money for the first time, and there are changes and moving parts. And and referring to a website is good, but they don't know if they're eligible or not. That's probably the number one reason. And the website probably isn't as good at clarifying that point or not, I don't think. But
right. And so what we are encouraging our business to do, if they are in that state of confusion, is to still apply, get them in the system. We've got checks and balance with our finance department where we know who has received checks already from Macomb County to create assurances that they won't be getting a second check from us. So we can always check it that way, but it ends up becoming at the back end rather than the front end. But we can definitely let them know if they had applied and received money from us, from Macomb County, whether they're eligible or not. But also understand the confusion. There's a lot of grants out there. Talked to a business today that applied for a Verizon grant, and he said, "Am I eligible?" I said, absolutely. Verizon's something completely different. So it's just letting them know to, when in doubt, still apply.
Sure. What about the VFWs and then some of the nonprofit groups that they have restaurants and they bars and stuff like that, and they've been closed down. It's affecting their income and their ability to maintain their operations. How do they fall? And there's probably an asterisk next to them, but nonetheless, they still have businesses, and they're just maybe in a different category. Is there any? Are those?
I'm glad you brought that up, because our nonprofit.
A couple people told me that they were ineligible from the VFW halls, and they've applied, but maybe there are other groups that are. I'm not sure.
Yes, and I'm glad you did bring that up, because our nonprofits are truly special to Macomb County when we look at the volume and the impact they have to the county. The first set of grants that went out, they were not eligible for, but part of our task force, we have Diane Banks from Advancing Macomb, who's the chair for the nonprofits, really listening to what the needs are for the nonprofits. So we are looking at putting together a special proposal to help them out differently than a for-profit business. I will probably be presenting that to the board at a later date, but just know we're working on what that looks like. In the immediate term, the MEDC grant that we received, nonprofits are eligible for those grant dollars. So I would encourage your nonprofits, especially the VFW halls, to apply for that, because that is something that includes your nonprofits as well as your home-based businesses.
And what was the name of that particular program?
It is the MEDC Restart program.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Vicki. Thank you for your efforts. You got a lot of moving parts. You're doing a good job of keeping it all together and making us informed as well. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Don. Next on the list. You're next, Harold.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Welcome.
Vicki, I have noticed almost daily that you are posting on social media that these grants are available. What I've been doing, I don't know if it's helping the problem or not, is sharing it and saying, if you don't know, call. And I would encourage all my colleagues to do the same. It puts our distribution list, not only to the businesses, but members like the VFWs, the opportunity to know that something like that's available. So thanks for all that you're doing. I know this is a complex, critical time for everybody on every issue, but this one is one of the most important. So thank you.
Thank you, Harold, for nice words. Any other commissioners have any other questions or comments for Vicki, Kelly, or Stacy? I don't see anyone on the list, so please vote. And we do. This is just for items G and H. Please vote.
That motion passes 10-0.
Very good. Thank you, Mike. I'll need a motion and support for items I through J that pertains to the Sterling Heights Chamber portion.
So moved,
Mr. Chairman. Carabelli.
Second.
Romano supports.
I didn't hear that. Say that again. That was moved by who?
Carabelli supported. I don't know who made the motion. This is Romano.
That was moved by Romano, supported by Carabelli. Very good. Are there any other questions or comments on this? We've heard from Stacy. This is the same thing as the previous item. I see no speakers. So please vote on this, which is items I and J. Please vote.
That motion passes 10-0.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Vicki. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Stacy. Keep up the good work, guys. difficult times. We're very lucky to have you on board. So next item here, we need a motion for this resolution urging the U.S. Air Force to consider the city of Sterling Heights for the future headquarters of the United States Space Command. It's interesting here. Mayor Taylor of Sterling Heights, Governor Whitmer, Executive Hackle sort of signed an agreement wanting to have Sterling Heights be the center for this. And thanks to Phil, Joe, and myself, we put this resolution together. So without objection, I need a motion for this.
Motion from Kraft.
Support, Carabelli.
Very good. Moved by Kraft, supported by Carabelli. I don't see any speakers. Please vote.
Mr. Chair, can I just speak real quick to it?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I threw this together because, well, I'm excited to have a resolution that I think we all can agree on for once. But I think this is a great opportunity, not only for Sterling Heights, but for Macomb County. I mean, me being from Chesterfield Township and right by Selfridge, I mean, having this Space Command here is just critical. And the chambers being on the line, I can see some of them smiling and nodding their heads, and Vicky too, that this is just important for the future of the county going forward. And it would be a huge boost to Macomb. And it's great to see, you know, and Mayor Taylor and Executive Hackle. And I know Candace Miller has come out as well in support of this, and I figured we as a board should too. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Very good. Any other commissioners wish to speak on this issue? Seeing none, please vote.
That motion passes 10-0.
Very good. Thank you, Mike. We're on to item 7, correspondences. I need a receive and file from A through D. I'll entertain a motion.
Moved by Romano.
Moved by Romano, supported by, I didn't hear support.
Hall.
By Commissioner Hall. Very good. Please vote on the receive and file items. It passes. We're now under item number 8, new business. Is there any new business, commissioners?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Commissioner Hall, first I'd like to thank Commissioner Kraft for putting a resolution together that we could all agree to this time. And secondly, and more importantly, I'm sure we all have seen or read recently about a young Sterling Heights police officer who saved an infant's life that was choking. I would like to propose that we put a resolution together showing our appreciation and gratitude for his professionalism, expertise, and the opportunity to have saved a life. So it's a request to do that.
Wonderful idea. Let's have our staff put that together. Excellent suggestion.
Thank you, Chair. That's all I have.
Thank you. I have Chairman Bob Smith wish to speak under new business. Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to point out that on July 30th, we'll be having a full board. And that's going to be held because of to allow for the CARES Act items to be considered before August. Now that we don't have an emergency order here in the county, those will all be before us on that meeting for the August CARES Act. And then with the governor's extension of her executive order through the middle of August, we will be meeting virtually at least through the week that the governor's order has been extended to.
Very
that's
good.
It. Thank you.
Bob, any other commissioners under new business? Any other commissioners? Okay, seeing no one, we'll go on to public participation. Anyone from the public, if you're there, you have 5 minutes. Please press *6 to unmute yourself, and you can speak about any topic you wish. Anyone from the public?
If nobody else would like to speak, I would like to speak.
Okay, who's that? Yeah, if you could give us your name and address for the record, and you have 5 minutes.
All right. My name is Mike Zubis. I live at 322 North Avenue, apartment 1, and that's located in Mount Clemens, Michigan. But real quick before I get started, I noticed that it was a real pain to get in through the Google Meet. I had to call in. So I don't know what's going on with that link, but somebody might want to look at that link. But just want to throw that out there before I begin my pass. I'm going to continue on with my my reading of the extended reading of my police reform issue that I brought up last month. And I'm going to do it a little bit today and tomorrow. So I'm going to start now, if that's all right.
Please go ahead.
Okay. Here we go. What's needed is a restoration of trust between all communities and the local, county, and state police forces. I also feel that we should align the changes to the police department to the next sheriff selection, so that when the new sheriff comes in, they have a whole new police force to start training in a more safe, trusting, and overall compassionate way, that we can bring trust back into all communities, help protect all innocent life, not just the officer being the priority, and most importantly, upholding the law against everyone equally, whether it's Wickersham, Hackle, or anybody else. That does not matter. What matters is the county commission's ability to conduct change through the lawmaking ability to allow for a more transparent and accountable police force that has the trust of all communities, not just specific ones. And when it comes to the third directive of RoboCop's directives, RoboCop was all about upholding the law, which I'm sure every cop in the country is taught to do. But the problem with not funding social safety net programs is that it leaves many jobs up to cops. Cops have too much to handle right now. I keep hearing about cops not only having to try to adhere to the prime directives that RoboCop is doing, but they are also mental health administrators, social workers, sometimes an EMT, and a myriad of other hats. That's too much to worry about in one shift. I'm sure some don't mind it, but the problem is not everybody comes out of the police academy with a PhD in psychology or an advanced knowledge in the issues of diseases of despair, as some social workers might be able to. It's like that one part in RoboCop 2 where he's given like 300 directives and starts operating in a very odd manner, whether he's way too nice or way too harsh. Like when RoboCop shoots at the guy smoking next to the no smoking sign. It's funny, but it feels like that's one of the many issues, which is why I understand defunding and all, but not unless we take the thing apart and put it back together, while also using that money towards other services in the community, which we should be able to afford, given my analysis in the next subject. I looked into the budget that was passed recently. So let me get this straight. The budget said for the sheriff's department, $23 million was taken in as revenue for the department, but $90 million was spent. So if the budget says, if I read it correctly, that the total budget of $277 million, of which the sheriff's department is approximately a third of that total, it has the 2/3 of that budget running in a deficit, which means what? That they get general fund money to make up for the egregious lack of funding? And half of that budget, the sheriff's office part, I mean, is because they costed to keep the jail going, go up and up and up on a very consistent basis. While the Department of Health and Community Services, something that could go a long way in getting those people, social workers, to attend to people with officer supervision, may hopefully keep people out of jail and in a job, gets $300K, maybe $400K if they're lucky. That's where the money should go. But then again, where is the money coming from? The taxpayer. That there in more ways than one. But I digress. We have a chance to fix this and fix the budget and fix the directives of RoboCop and the RL cops and bring them back into the proper alignment. Which brings me to RoboCop's supervillain and his secret fourth directive. Every superhero needs a supervillain to fight to justify the ethos of their world, their existence, and whatnot. Superman fought Lex Luthor. Batman, he had Joker, Catwoman, and even some guy with a lot of riddles. Most of their superheroes have some equal to or some competition to their superpowers.
You have 30 seconds left.
Okay. I'm going to try and finish this part. Okay. Abilities, or even in Batman's case, most of the superheroes have some equal or some competition to their superpowers, abilities, or in Batman's case, mountains of cold, hard cash. I feel that RoboCop's true supervillain is the corruption inherent in the system. And I will leave that there and finish or at least try to finish the rest of this tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you very
so much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else under new business or public participation?
Commissioner Majek, this is Brian Santo. I had a little technical difficulties in the beginning of this meeting. Just wanted to check and make sure there was no issues or concerns with my items that were on the agenda.
I don't think so. We didn't have any questions.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So seeing no one else, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, Drolette.
Moved by Drolette, supported by Hall. Please vote to adjourn. Thank you, commissioners.
Mike, Keith, would you stay on the line once we vote, please?
Sorry about that. Who's that?
That motion passes unanimously.